I'm
Summer's
just
good,
coming in
man.
from pouring concrete, so I'm pretty grungy right now, but I had a
Grungy's
full day of it.
good. No, you look awesome. Grungy's
Okay,
good.
well, welcome. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Anyone Can Farm
Woo!
live chat, coming to you from Marion, Michigan, Baker's Green Acres more specifically. And this is our Thursday night edition, and we've switched to a slightly different format where we every Thursday night we're going to do interviews, and the interviews are going to be with other homesteaders, other patriots, other people. So you're not just listening to one point of view on the things that we talk about at the Anyone Can Farm live chat. And most of the things we talk about are homesteading, small farms, and just plain living is the way I like to put it. Sometimes we stray into politics and things like that, but the longer I'm in this, the less politics seem relevant to me. It just doesn't seem that relevant because we're creating our own situation. And tonight, we're going to be interviewing the resistance chicks. Sometimes you guys hear me refer to them as the resistance babes. And I do that, kind of affectionately. I don't mean
I love
to
it.
dish
it's
you at
fun.
all.
We're fun.
But let me read this bio. And here we go. The resistance chicks are sisters, Leah and Michelle Svensson, who run a suburban farm and homestead in southern Ohio. Through their news commentary broadcast, they want to empower people with tools to stand up against tyranny from every direction. I'm on your team, okay? They have a worldwide audience, and their goal is to bring real, relevant news with a side of crazy and laughter to help the red pill go down. They stand for righteous America, the one our founding fathers bled and died for, America that the pilgrims sacrificed everything to gain. Amen. Having been both educated via homeschool and public school, they seek to utilize their years of study on the history of our founding fathers in hopes of right and revisionist, in hopes of right to write the revisionist history lies we've all been taught through public school indoctrination. They end every show with their saying, it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. Because the truth is stranger than fiction. Welcome, Michelle and Leah.
Hey, Mark. We love coming on your show. We love having you on our show. For your viewers and the tribe here, you guys need to know that Mark and Jill are friends of ours, and we connect with you guys, and you connect with a lot of people. But the first time that we met you was at the Rogue Food Conference, and we just hit it off because you are literally what I would call as a righteous man, saying righteous things and standing for our Constitution and our founding fathers. And I think that that's why so many people are drawn to you. So I love coming on your show. Thanks for having us.
Right on. Hey, my pleasure. I really like hanging out with you guys. It's too why are we not getting together in real life? I mean, you haven't seen Baker's Green Acres. You really need to come up here.
We missed the tribe day. We had a funeral we had to go to. A good friend of ours that died of cancer, and the funeral was the same day.
I don't. Oh, okay.
It was a valid excuse, but we wanted to come.
Yeah. Well, we've got a cabin, we've got an apartment in the garage next door, and there's a campground. So there's plenty of room.
I saw the camper, man. I saw Jill posting the picture of the camper, man.
Is that fun?
It's awesome.
That is so cool.
You guys have campers that can come and stay there now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
we can bring a tent.
We hooked up with this group of people when we were out in Texas in January, and they're called Nomads. And these are people who have chosen to live in campers or school buses they're not like the people that you think of that would be living down by the bridge in a school bus.
Yeah.
These are people that make the decision to do this because housing is so expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and they can live in a fifth wheel like the Bachers that were staying here. They're living in a fifth wheel. They got jobs. They're packing the dollars away. And Mike Bacher said to me, he said, our next move is the homestead. So they really made the best out of staying here. And I tell you what, I miss them. Today I went over there for something, and the kids weren't there. They had 4 kids, a 13-year-old boy. He had his birthday here, and then
Stop it.
yeah, it was, and the youngest, she didn't come over too much, but the next up boy, his name was Banner. He was here all the time. And I just turned around, there he'd be in the house, and he'd be sitting at the table
That's
coloring
awesome.
or something. Really cool. And the last day, this will touch your hearts. The last day, they were leaving, and we kept kidding them because they were supposed to leave after 1 week, and then they
Right.
stayed 2 weeks, and then they stayed 3 weeks, and we were like, "You guys are never leaving. You're staying." And they pull out, and the little girl comes running up the back lawn, and I said, "Is everything okay?" And she says, "Well, Banner left his shoes." And so they were over by the trampoline, and so she got them, and then she stood there for a minute, and I said, "Did you need to give me a hug?" And she said, "Yes."
Stop it.
I'm not kidding. I'm not
Mark.
kidding. Yeah, I don't even like to think about it because it tears me up. They were such nice
That
little
is
kids.
the best story. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
we had
I
the
love
best
it.
time.
Oh,
But see,
that's awesome.
can our lives be like that?
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? And that's the thing.
But you
Good.
inspired them. Now they're going to do a homestead themselves.
Yes.
That's
They
awesome.
even looked at property while they were here. They're Texas people though, right? And so like he's from Hawaii, and he told me the first time he came to the States, he was walking down the jetway and he felt a cold breeze, and he was like, "What is that?" Because they just never have cold weather in Hawaii. It's always like 70 degrees during the day or in the night, and then maybe 85 during the day at the most, but there's never any extreme, right? So
Right.
yeah, I don't know how they do in the north. I think they could get used to it. But Texas
you guys
is hard
have some
too.
cold weather up there.
You
And
know-
we're in Ohio, but you guys get even colder weather.
You guys get
than
it,
we do.
man. Yeah.
Y'all get it. You're dedicated.
All right, so let's talk about you guys, because I'm the interviewer, and people want to hear what you guys are all about. This is really neat because we've got the Declare Homestead. Can you guys see the chat?
I can see the
I
chat.
can
Yeah.
see.
That was classic. It hung up for a minute, and your mouth was like.
Oh, that's
Okay, we've got the Declare Homestead.
What's up?
We've got Jason Warden. He must be one of your guys, because
it says I did link us with our Facebook. Yes.
Okay, cool. Because that's new. That's a new name to me. We've got Belva Rockwell. Belva's one of our Tribe Plus members. Declare Homestead. Vindicti, long time to see. Tribe, glad to be here again. Okay.
Resistance Chicks Church. That's mom.
Yeah, our mom is in the chat there.
And then Justin Zilka. Jay-Z.
Awesome.
We
What's
call
up?
him Jay-Z.
What's up? We did an interview with the Children's Health Fund, Tea Time with Polly, Defense, Tea Time with Polly, and they have been fighting against the vaccine mandates, and they've, all 4 of these women on this interview have vaccine injured children, and
we are on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, but they do have vaccine injured children. And they wanted to start talking about homesteading and growing your own food and preparing. And so they had us on for like an hour of that. And it was absolutely wonderful. And the people in their chat, you guys, we sent them, they're like, well, where do we go to learn more? And we're like, go join the Anyone Can Farm. You weren't even in the interview. They didn't even see your face. They took our word and went to Facebook and joined the Anyone Can Farm tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that. I saw that bump in people, because they got they got to answer a questionnaire like, "Where'd you hear about the tribe?"
Yeah.
And it's the resistance chicks. So
Oh,
I
that's awesome. That
automatically
makes me
let
so
them in.
happy. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Because
that's pretty cool.
I mean, we have to, and Mark, we were talking about this. Like, how are we going to change all the bad things that are happening? How do we change society? And it really boils down to getting back to the way that God intended us to live, which is close to the land, close to community. That's what you're feeling when you had that family there, like having those connections. That's how we're going to fix all of society. But it starts by getting your hands in the dirt. And the fact that so many people are waking up, they're going to need people like
see,
like you guys.
That's why you have to have community, right? That's why I get messages all the time, and trying to find a place to send people that will you can bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Right. And the Anyone Can Farm tribe is perfect because I'll post a question there. People post a question. What do you do about your milk cow? And you guys will even post questions in there. Jill will post a question. What do you guys think about this? And because none of us grew up in it. And even if you did, even old time farmers will need to ask questions because you're always going to run into something that you haven't done before.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We're going to get into that more, but let me, we have some questions here, and I think this is really interesting. This first question is, who are some of the founding fathers who you spoke about in agriculture?
Okay, this is a good one.
You know, if you can expound on that a little bit, why you think.
This is my favorite. This is honestly I don't know how many people want to hear this. We did, I think, have we spoken to you since we spoke at the Old School Survival Boot Camp?
I don't think so.
Okay, so in May, Michelle and I were I was interviewing a woman who's put on an Old School Survival Boot Camp. It was really cool. About 2,000 people show up, and there's all different kinds of instructors.
Classes.
3 days of anything from blacksmithing to herbal tinctures.
They butchered a cow. They butchered pigs. They butchered chickens. They showed you how to, shoot bow and arrow, starting fires, everything you can imagine for survival and homesteading.
And it was here.
It was
classes. It was right here in Ohio, and I wanted our viewers to go and learn this stuff. So I interviewed the lady, help putting it on, Tara Dodrill, who's awesome. They're doing another one a year from now, and we wanted some Bards people to come. Well, she's like, so why don't you guys teach a class? And I'm like, Tara, you've got everything covered that I know how to do: butchering pigs, everything.
You've already got those teachers.
You got them all.
She even had a guide teaching a Constitution class.
And she's like, what about something like that? And I said, you got a Constitution guy, and I'm not a constitutional expert. And I said, well, why don't we do God and government? And she said, okay. And so Michelle and I were like toying with this idea. What do we do, God and government, right? Here's the thing. When people ask me a lot of stuff, ask me questions, I try to channel the little bit of inner Mark Baker that I have. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding. I've learned so much from you.
That's true.
And I have been so inspired and kind of encouraged by you to really invoke the Constitution. So we wanted to lay a foundation with the Pilgrims and the founding fathers, but I knew I was going to go talk to people who were getting into agriculture, getting into homesteading, not knowing that there's all kind of rules and regulations
and an evil force against you to stop you from doing
rules and regulations that are going to fight you and stop you every step of the way, right? So you have to know original intent. What is original intent? It's when a case goes before the Supreme Court, they're supposed to decide every case according to how the founding fathers would have interpreted this particular law. Okay. So what I did was we went through the Pilgrims, we went through the founding fathers, and then the founding fathers were incredible agriculturalists. And Benjamin Franklin said this. So I brought up a bunch of quotes for people to kind of understand just how important it was for them. So if you know original intent, then you can invoke the Constitution and not have them come at you. So Benjamin Franklin, there seem to be but 3 ways for a nation to acquire wealth. The first is by war, as the Romans did, in plundering their conquered neighbors. This is robbery. The second by commerce, which is generally cheating. The third by agriculture, the only honest way, wherein man receives a real increase of the seed thrown into the ground in a kind of continual miracle wrought by, this is so anointed, wrought by the hand of God in his favor as a reward for his innocent life and his virtuous industry.
So here's what I said to the people when Leah read that quote. And it really boils down to this. Essentially, what Benjamin Franklin himself is saying is there are three ways in this world to get wealth. Two of them are corrupt and the other is farming.
Yeah.
So if you go at it and you come at, you understand that was the mindset of our founding fathers.
And do you think
everything changes?
Do you think that in one iota, these men who wrote the Constitution, that they wanted any restrictions on buying and selling and trading in farming or growing your own food?
No.
Not any.
No.
Not any.
Right. So now tell them about Thomas Jefferson here.
So Thomas Jefferson,
really
he experimented with 330 varieties of more than 70 species of vegetables from around the world. Plants in the garden included squash and broccoli imported from Italy, beans and salsify collected from the Lewis and Clark expedition, figs from France, peppers from Mexico. Jefferson documented his successes and failures in a garden book, noting, for instance, the dates when the seeds were planted, when leaves appeared, when their fruits came to table. He applied his analytical mindset to gardening, writing that I am curious to select one or two of the best species of variety of every garden vegetable and to reject all the others. Following his inspection of the vegetable and fruit gardens, Jefferson would likely mount a horse, visit his three outlying quarters farms, which covered 5,000 acres. In the fields, he might check on a cutting of clover, clearing of land for the fall grain planting. He says, I think our governments will remain virtuous for many centuries as long as they are chiefly agricultural. No occupation is so delightful as the culture of the earth. Cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. They are the most virtuous, the most independent. They are tied to their country, wedded to its liberty by the most lasting bonds. As long, therefore, as man can find employment in this line, I do not convert them to mariners, artisans, or anything else. Like, don't work a job. If you can do the soil, you're going to be the best citizen known to mankind.
Every time she reads that, I get goosebumps. Yeah. These are our founding fathers.
One more, because this is so good. Those who labor the earth, Thomas Jefferson, are the chosen people of God, if ever he had a chosen people, whose breast he made his peculiar deposit for his substantial, genuine virtue. Corruption of morals in the mass of cultivators, farmers, is a phenomenon which no age or nation has furnished an example. He's basically saying, if you're working hard all day, you don't have time to play around, mess around,
sleep around on your wife.
He says, let's see, there's so much. He says, there's a couple more. Do not let war divert us from agriculture, which is our wisest pursuit, because it will in the end contribute most to real wealth, good morals, and happiness. The wealth acquired from speculation, the stock market, and plunder is no good. It's fleeting and fills society with a spirit of gambling. The moderate and sure income of husbandry begets permanent improvement, a quiet life, orderly conduct, both public and private. We have no occasion for more commerce than to take off our superfluous produce. There's more. John Adams, he said the same thing. Benjamin Franklin, James Madison. So when it comes to it, when you and were invoking the Constitution, you were invoking the spirit of our founding fathers. The whole reason that they fought and died was to have their own income on their own land, being their own boss.
Yeah. And touching God through doing that. And so and I often we did the class for 3 days. And I think at least 2 of the days I told your story that you told us at the Rogue Food Conference about you taking the driver's license and all of that. And I know
we tell that to everybody.
The reaction of the crowd. And we had about 50, 60 people sitting there each day. And every time I would tell that story, it was like this.
And it would inspire the men in the room.
Yeah. For people to understand, no, you work for me. This is my land. You know, and so that's what I really want people to understand, that there's this kind of whole circle here of our founding fathers intended for us to be farming. They thought it was the very best. So they wrote laws and rules that literally enshrined the rights that God gave us to do that. And once we know that, then we can stand and be like Mark Baker when the government tries to come at us. But you, first of all, you need to be armed with the facts.
Yeah.
It's the Constitution is great. The Bill of Rights are great, but also having the spirit of the founding fathers and knowing them is even better.
George Washington said, I would rather be on my farm than emperor of the world.
Me too. Me too. See, there's a book that's out there right now. You guys are on to this. This book is really good. It's called Founding Gardeners.
Yes,
And it goes through and it tells
yeah.
where they are, you know, as far as their farming careers go. And you talked about, I think it was Thomas Jefferson that would cruise around and he would check all these things. That was like mining then. They were creating real wealth.
Yeah.
And that wealth comes from our creator.
Yeah.
Like you take a small seed, let's say, I use this example all the time, a tomato seed. It doesn't really have much value, just the seed, if we just take that seed. But you put it in this earth, you put it into the soil, all the cool stuff that's in there, all the microbiological life, and then a plant comes up, and we've got huge plants just from that one little seed.
Yes.
And they'll give you a couple of bushels of tomatoes.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like magic, actually.
It is.
It, you know, it really is. It's a miracle what happens.
It is a miracle. It is a miracle.
And there's something that you said, too, about one of the ways to gain wealth is to plunder, right? Mm-hmm. Plunder meaning
steal.
By any means, steal, right?
Yeah.
So our situation, like when they wanted us to stop our operation because they said so, is years and years and years of authority that they have gained. Like there was the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Natural Resources. The only reason the natural resources people were brought in is because they're armed and they're going up against farmers. And farmers are notoriously, well, they have backhoes, you know, they do things, right? So they brought in the Department of Natural Resources. And so what they were doing was destroying the small farm. That was their intent. The operation that we saw unfold the last couple of years, you know, COVID-19, on the heels of COVID-19 is now a food shortage.
Yes.
But if they had had their way, if they had their way, their ruling, their declaratory ruling, their rule that they made up, their mandate that they just made up, right? It's really kind of funny. Like they don't have the authority to make up rules, but they made one up anyway. And most people just, oh yeah, I better do it. Just like when the Walmart guy says you got to put your mask on. Oh, I better do it.
Yeah.
And what they were doing was they were taking the small farmers off the land. That was their intent. Because had they been victorious against this farm, then they said that any non-native species was an invasive species and that needed to be depopulated. So they weren't really coming after me. They were coming after all of my neighbors here that farm black and white cows. That's who they were going after.
That's unbelievable.
It really was unbelievable. But you can't put anything past them. When you do that, you're imposing on them yourself. Like, you know, you get mad at somebody and, oh, I'd like to shoot them, but you never would, right?
Exactly.
But, they will shoot you just because they're told to, you know?
Right.
So they do plunder from us. And the fix on that plunder is the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And I'm the one that has hit the press to test button with that finger right there.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that it works. And I appreciate you channeling me from time to time. Go for it.
No, and I tell you what, I want to jump to just the end of what happened that weekend because it moved me. We told a lot of these stories. They gave a lot of these quotes, and at the end, I just felt like leaving everybody with all this information. They kind of almost been hit by a nuclear bomb because they weren't ready for somebody to just really just say we can do this, and it was just hit by the power of God and the truth of, I don't know. Everybody's just filled with knowledge and knowledge is power.
And the reverberation in I say it was a room, but we were literally holding a class. They put us in a show arena. So there was a dirt floor arena around us and like benches everywhere. That's where we were holding our class. But you could feel the energy as we were talking, and people were getting empowered by whether I was telling your story or our own story, which is also really powerful. And so we had a lot of people throughout that would just kind of interact, like kind of blurt out something and respond. And one of them was this 12-year-old boy who was homeschooled.
Well, he knew a lot of the answers to the questions I would ask, and he kept raising his hand. So at the end, I just felt like I couldn't just say goodbye to everybody. Some people have been with us for a couple of days. So I felt like, hey, we should end in prayer. And I felt like the men should pray. And so I said, so would a man in here end us in prayer? And it was silent.
It was the longest, like 4 seconds of my life. I was like, no man is going to volunteer.
Okay, well.
And there were a ton of men that were in this class. I was actually surprised.
I was like, okay, this is, but that little 12-year-old boy
hops up and he's like, I'll do it. Like, I'm a man. I'll pray.
And so I said, well, come on down here. And then every single man, every single one came down.
They were like, you could see the wheels going. I can't let this 12-year-old boy show me up. So there were about 15 to 20 guys that came down to the front, and you could tell most of them had never prayed out loud in front of a crowd before. Some of them had probably never prayed out loud ever. And so I had my mic and I took it off and I just kind of bowed my head. And the first guy kind of looks, he's like, well, what do you want me to pray? And Leah said, just anything.
Pray for our nation.
Pray for our nation.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Mark, as we went down the line and I kind of held the mic in front of every single one of their faces, every single prayer was so righteous. It was so incredible.
One guy, Michelle told me his
I hope he doesn't watch this show.
But his leg was shaking.
I looked down, I've got to look down and his leg is shaking, but his prayer was so powerful. Like he was so nervous to be doing it.
She had her back to the women in the audience and they were just bawling, crying. Oh. And the mom of the little 12-year-old boy, after we were done, I went to ask her. I was like, I just wanted to tell you, your son is amazing. And she's just like, I can't talk. She goes away. I'm like, okay, that was weird. She comes back like 5 or 10 minutes later. She goes, I was so overcome by emotion. I had to go collect myself.
Yeah.
The men were coming up. The women were coming up. I can't believe this is what we needed. We need to be empowered by this. And so when people ask me, my favorite thing to do, and it's a very small niche, is to talk about the founding fathers and agriculture and where we are today and to kind of empower people with that information. And I just absolutely love that was the first question.
Well, okay. Those were the questions. Remember, I had 5 questions to submit. So that was the one that I went with. It wasn't like somebody asked that question.
You submitted.
Yeah, because I know that's our wheelhouse.
Oh,
we're talking to Mark.
Okay. I thought somebody asked
I'm sorry.
Okay. Kind of brought me down a little bit. That's okay. That is my.
I didn't mean to deflate you.
I'm glad we asked the question of ourselves.
I thought it was a good one. It's mostly, but see, it's me asking the question of you because that's really your passion.
It is my passion.
But it's an important passion that people need to understand that this is what our founding fathers intended. Yeah. And so, of course, we have every right, and anyone can farm because that's what they were. They thought it was the best of life.
Right. So George Washington, this might be cool information for some people. He never called himself a planter. He called himself a farmer. And a scientific farmer. Nearly half of his lands were tilled under a very complex rotation plan. He was able to test 60 different crops. When his efforts to, and we know things fail. When his efforts to grow grapes failed, his vineyard became a laboratory for horse chestnuts in a tree box. When seeds were difficult and costly to obtain, Washington's gardener used the old vineyard enclosure to nurture rare grasses, pumpkins, lemon, carrots, exotic varieties of apples, pears, plum, peaches, and cherries. He cultivated over 60 different crops with intense rotation. He was among the first of Americans to abandon the old 3-field system, switch to a 7-field system, allowing him to raise 7 different crops at a time and give the land a 7-year rotation. 10 years after the Republic was born, Washington began to reconfigure his fields on his farms, changing from a 1-crop tobacco system to a 7-crop system growing wheat, corn, and legumes. Wheat was the principal cash crop. Corn was fed to his livestock, and legumes fed the soil. Farming technique was Washington's principal intellectual discipline. His favorite topic of conversation. Historian said Washington was a farmer with a true farmer's love of the land, believing that the life of a husbandman was of all vocations the most delectable. Agriculture, he asserted, was the proper source of the American wealth and happiness, and he predicted that Americans would continue to be an agriculture people for ages to come.
So let's think about this for a second. Even in Christian schooling, we focus on Washington as the military man, as the commander in chief.
But all he wanted to do was grow.
It even said in there, Leah read over this, it was the chief part of his correspondence, meaning whenever he was writing anybody, that's what he was talking about. So we are missing in our education system really getting to know these people. Who were they? Because if we knew, if it was taught even in Christian schools that our founding fathers were primarily farmers, you had better believe that people, even patriots in the movement, would go, it's patriotic to be a farmer.
This is here, James Madison. This is a quote you're not going to hear a lot about manure. The neglect of manures is another error which claims particular notice. It may be traced to the same cause of our excessive cropping. In the early stages of our agriculture, it was more convenient and more profitable to bring new land into cultivation than to improve the existing land, the exhausted land. The failure of new land has long called for the improvement of old land, but habit has kept us deaf to the call. John Adams actually was writing about how he fertilized the land, because we're talking about a fertilizing shortage. These men weren't using chemical fertilizers, but they knew how important fertilizer was, Okay, so he quotes this. He goes, I'm going to bring in 20 loads of seaweed. He called it eelgrass. I'm going to bring in 20 loads of marsh mud, and what dead ashes I can get from the potash works, and what dung I can get from Boston. Rockweed is like an algae that grows off the coast of New England. And all this together with what is made from the barn and my horses and oxen and cows and hogs. And then I'm going to bring in my weeds, and that will be carried in from the garden and the wash and the trash from the house. And in the course of the year, we're going to have a good quantity of choice manure. This is the kind of stuff that they were talking about, because it's not enough. And you know this, it's not enough to just, hey, let's plant some trees, let's plant some crops. You have to fertilize the land. And honestly, a good farmer is going to talk just as much on how we're going to improve the soil as we are what we're going to put in the soil.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I made a video this morning actually about that, because I do this rotational thing where I plant a field and then I put my animals on that field. They do the harvest, they manure back, and they urinate back to it. And the gain comes from the microbiological life in the soil, which I can help it. I can stack the deck a little bit, but the sunlight, that's above my pay grade. The rain, that's way above my pay grade. So this creation that we live in is intended to gain in fertility as it's used. That was why Washington talked about his 7-crop rotation. In modern agriculture now, they don't do crop rotations except maybe 1 or 2. And they all feel as though, oh, you got to put chemical fertilizer on it. So it's the same old thing all the time. It's sort of like when you have to go to a guy with a long robe and ask him to ask God for forgiveness of your sins. It's the same thing. So we have somebody, a company like Dow, that steps in between the farmer and his fields and say, pay us for these little pellets to put in your soil, or it won't grow. And then once you get caught up in that, it's pretty bad, because it starts to die. So you need more chemical to go into it. And it's
like a drug addiction.
They couldn't pull this off if we weren't susceptible to greed.
Wow.
If we as farmers were not susceptible to greed.
Wow.
They could never pull it off, because if Dow came to me right now and say, "Hey, how'd you like to do some Roundup Ready crops?" I'd say, "No, I don't want to do that. I got a good thing going already. Why would I want to do that?" But they want to
Yeah.
get in between. They want a parasite. They want a middleman. They want to plunder. That's what they're all about. And then they use
Exactly.
their little minions at the state level to enforce their plundering. That's how it works.
That's
Yeah.
exactly how
And
it works.
we're on the same page on a lot of things, but I have moved away from the head-to-head confrontation with these people. I've moved away
Right.
from it. And I have just decided I'm building my own. I have my own homestead. I mean, everything that I ate tonight came off of my land, off of my work, my butchering. It all comes from me and my family. We
Right.
made all of that. And now we've expanded it out. We've got a lot of families that we call the tribe that want to do the same thing. And they're branching out into their own tribes of people. So what we've learned over the last few years is that we can't depend on them. We can't depend on the schools. We can't depend on the hospitals. We have to build our own. And that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of what we're doing. So I'm past the point where I feel as though, oh, the state can shut me down. I know how the rules work.
Right.
They can't shut me down. They don't have the authority to do it. They don't have the wherewithal to do it. I just don't play their game. If I could have gone to the Rogue Food Conference again, if I could have, I wanted to actually, but there was some lawyer issues, right? So I didn't get to go, but I would have put an X on the floor, right? And then I would have said, I need a volunteer from the audience to come up here, please. And I would have looked around for somebody like you two. And when you would come up, I would kind of vector you across that X on the floor. And then when you come up to the podium, $200 from you.
Wow.
And you would say, like, what? Why do I got to give you $200? And I would say, you just passed go. Give me $200. Isn't that how that works? I'm not really sure. Maybe I'd have to fine tune it a little bit. But you would say, well, I'm not playing Monopoly.
Right.
And then I would say, well, I don't care. I'm playing Monopoly and you're going to pay me the $200.
Mm.
And then maybe I'll have to go get a state policeman to point a gun at you.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
That's
good.
how they play. That's how they're playing. They have their rule book
Yeah.
that they want you to play by. Department of Agriculture, all their milk inspectors, all this stuff.
Right.
Where the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which is what? The supreme law of the land,
Exactly.
states that your life, liberty, and property, which is your process, which is if you milk cows, that's your process, is protected under due process of law. Department of Ag don't make laws, and if it's repugnant to the Bill of Rights or the federal Constitution, I'm under no obligation to pay any attention to it at all. And I don't now, since I learned that. I pay no attention to their little things that they play, like they say, oh, raw milk, that's illegal. Well, not in my book, it isn't. And I'm not playing your game. I'm an American citizen. I'm governed by a constitution in a representative republic. So you don't have any way of getting at me. It's game over. And this is what we're the word we're going to get out to other farmers, that, in essence, you're wearing the ruby slippers. You're wearing them. They've got you convinced that you have to go through them to farm. And like you have to go through a guy in a black dress for forgiveness of sin. They middleman it. And what do they use? I know this is your interview, but
No,
this
it's
is
great.
good
No,
stuff.
this is good.
What do they use? They use lies and deception.
Right.
Right? I got out of the service and I said, well, what do I need to do to open up a butcher shop? And they said, oh, you need to check with us. And then you need to pay for a permit, a permission slip. so I can butcher animals? Oh, yes, they say. They lie. And
Exactly.
it took us a while to figure it out, but now we kind of understand it. And, honestly, if there weren't people like you that stood up and kept putting this word out, they would have had a slam dunk. They really would have had a slam dunk. The farmers in my neighborhood really never quite understood what the Department of Agriculture was doing. They never understood it because I'm not from here, and they thought that maybe I was going off half cocked and stuff, and they never really talked to me about it. But really, the guys that milked the black and white cows, they were the target of the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah.
And if the Department of Agriculture had accomplished their mission, those guys would be having to go to the Department of Ag and say, can we please farm? Because, right, their animals are not native species to
Mhm.
North America. So
Right.
they would have had to acquire permits from the
Yeah.
Department of Ag that, then the Department of Ag can pull those permits anytime they want. That's the game
Yeah.
they play. But if
Right.
you never get their permits, actually, you never talk to them. There's no reason for you to ever talk to any of those people, not even
Right.
say hello. They're on the wrong
Right.
side. They're wearing the wrong uniform. They're actually the enemy of God because God gave us this creation to cultivate. That's why the story
Exactly.
of Adam and Eve is there, so we can do these things. And our founding fathers that gave us the Constitution, they were into all this, right?
Right.
And that's what you're
No,
saying. I think it's
Yeah.
I know,
super
and I want
complex.
to emphasize this to you guys, and I don't remember if we said this the first time that we were on your show or not, but this is really important because you said you don't even acknowledge these people. If you do have to have any kind of interaction with these people, this is my suggestion. We do what I call crazy Christian. Listen, you used to be able to bring a Bible into court as evidence. So you can take it all the way. I love to go back to the Bill of Rights. I love to go back to the Declaration of the Constitution, but you can take it all the way back to Genesis, the first book of the Bible. What am I called to do? I'm called to subdue the earth. I'm called to take dominion. God put us in a garden to start with. When man sinned, he went to a city. Cain kills Abel. God banishes him from the garden, right? And then he goes and builds cities. So we're not called to be in cities. We have every right. So when these people have come after us, when they've come on our property, we go crazy Christian. When they write us letters, we go crazy Christian back. There's a federal religious exemption act. I think it's called the RUPULA, Religious Land Use Act, something or other, where this is my religion. And I'm not talking about the Needy Bali food church. I mean, this is my religion. Like, this is who I am. This is, you can't take this from me. They can't. So when you start throwing at them these kind of quotes, if you look these up and you are armed with this stuff when they show up and you say, you listen to me, I'm going to read some stuff to you. And you start reading these founding fathers quotes and you say, listen, if this thing ever made it to the Supreme Court, this is what I'm submitting. This is because they have to interpret these cases according to original intent. And when you have these kind of quotes, these people, what happened here on our property after several different times is my mom especially went crazy Christian, crazy founding fathers, just start touting off all this stuff. He had a clipboard and he just started backing away and he was kind of stumbling over his words. And he was like, ma'am, I'm just going to mark that everything is fine here. And he left and we never had another person come back on our property after that. And so that's what you need to it's great to have the Constitution. It's great to have all that stuff. But when you go cray on them with these kind of facts, they have nothing to say.
If you're not in America, because I know that your tribe goes far and wide.
Yeah.
So does ours. You have to know, the Lockean principle of nature and nature's God.
That's John Locke, 2 treaties of civil government.
As you just quoted, your right to life, liberty, and property.
Yeah.
You have to have it deep within your soul that if God has called you to be self-sufficient, and he has,
yes,
then he will equip you to do that. And if you need to be a pioneer in your country, in your area, then you may need to bust down some walls, and you may need to bust some heads, and you may need to change the system that's set up. And maybe there are some laws set up in other countries that you might need to go head to head with. I know for sure that in Europe, they regulate who can make cheeses, who can do this, who can do wines,
Oh
who can
yeah.
do this. You need to have it deep within your soul that you have a right to grow food and to sell that food and to make contracts with people. You know, and I know we're on Facebook, whatever, but we're at a time where you can do anything you want. LGBT, you can have as many genders as you want. Okay. Well, that's a that is you're
because they'll tell you that's personal.
You can have a personal encounter with somebody and share way more things than raw milk with people. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
You should be able to share and make a
things that are more deadly,
transaction,
by the way,
with two people. This is a transaction between two people. Okay, you won't let me put it in grocery stores. We'll talk about that another day. But I sure as heck am allowed to make a transaction between me and another person.
Right.
As long as that is not an illegal thing. Like, we're not going to murder. You know, maybe I might not be able to sell an M16. Maybe I should be able to do that. I don't know. Maybe a tank. I don't know. But seriously, when we get down to life, liberty, and property, growing your own food is as basic as water and breathing.
Yeah. And so when anybody tries to throw in those other things at you, you say, no. That's not part of the conversation. We're talking about the most basic things that we need to survive: food, shelter, and water. You cannot regulate those three, and air. You can't regulate those things.
That's what we said, about the masks. You can't regulate air.
Exactly.
You can't. I never thought they'd regulate air. Like life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, you'd think oxygen would be one of those things.
Exactly.
Well, there's a couple things that the people should hear. What they do is they draw you into a contract or an agreement.
Yeah.
Right. And that agreement would be like, when I opened my butcher shop, I got a license from them. And it was basically a permission slip from the Department of Agriculture to run the butcher shop.
Mm-hmm.
And in the fine print, I agreed to X, Y, and Z. And, like they could come and inspect anytime they want. So I basically gave up the Fourth Amendment right there. They could come in the middle of the night and inspect. I signed away that when I took that permit. And a few other things that are kind of irrelevant at this point. But then when I let that permit go, when it came up to the date when I was supposed to renew it, and I just didn't renew it, they called me. Actually, they showed up here the next day with 2 state police cars and their usual entourage to push me into
intimidate,
submission. Right? I kind of miss those guys, actually. But anyway, I told them, we no longer have a contract. So now we revert to where we were before. And that's the Fourth Amendment that says, if you want to come on my property, you need my permission or a warrant. And the only way you can get a warrant is if you suspect that I'm doing something illegal. There is nothing in farming that is illegal. Nothing. I mean, maybe if we were growing poppies and we were making it into opium, that might be
right.
That would be a problem. But even now you can grow marijuana. So that used to be their good thing, was they could fly over and say, well, he's cultivating marijuana. And then they gained entrance through that. But they can't do that anymore even. So it's very unlikely that any of the things we do, like you will hear people say, oh, well, raw milk is illegal in Michigan. And it's just like one of those things that just rolls off people's tongues. But if you were pulled over, let's say, by a state policeman and you had a half a gallon of raw milk on the seat, would you be throwing that out the window because it's illegal?
Right.
No,
how would they even know? Are they, what's that there in your bag, ma'am?
It's not illegal, because to be illegal, it has to be on the controlled substance roster.
Yeah, exactly.
Like right there. Marijuana used to be on that roster, and it's no longer on that roster anymore. Right. So if I want to sell you raw milk, that's between me and you. And there's nothing they can do, because I troll them all the time. I put raw milk for sale on Facebook all the time, and they don't, they can't do anything. They can't
Yeah.
not do anything. If I want to milk, I mean, how ridiculous is that anyway? You milk a cow and then you want to sell it for a few dollars. Why is that so different than growing tomatoes and selling those for a few dollars? It's just there's no tomato lobby is the reason why.
Well,
That's it.
It's like
here's
a
the
milk
thing.
cartel.
There's that Amish farmer.
That's
What's
money.
his name? Amos.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the Amish
That-
farmers.
Be careful with
Amos
that
Miller?
one.
That
Amos
one's
Miller,
that
yeah.
one's
He got
tricky.
himself into a contract with them. They're diabolical little people. He was doing a good business. I met him, and then they jumped all over him. He had a problem because he didn't understand the law.
Okay.
And he had lawyers talking to him. He had other people talking to him. He really should have just talked to one person that lived it and made it through, but he didn't. And the lawyers got him to enter into a contract, and then he violated the contract.
Okay.
So they got him. It's sort of like you mentioned before, a home association.
Mm-hmm.
That one, with all due respect, should be left alone because when you buy a home in a homeowners association area, before you pay for that house, you have to sign allegiance to their rules, like clipping your grass and no flags and all this stuff.
Right.
And then you'll have some American GI that will put up an American flag, and they freak out because they can't do it. Well, you signed an agreement, Junior, that you wouldn't do it.
Right.
Because they can't have people putting up other offensive flags, so they just say no flags, right?
Right.
So homeowners association it's private. It's like if you go to a health club and they say you got to wear a bathing suit in the pool, and then you say, hey, no, because the Constitution says that I'm whatever.
Right.
That's not going to work because you signed an agreement that you and we do that all the time. We sign away our constitutional rights.
Right.
And sometimes it makes sense to do that. Like right now, you can't go in Walmart with a concealed weapon or an open carry weapon. You can't.
Open carry.
It used to be you could go in there with an AR-15 across your back, and they couldn't say anything to you. But now they've changed it, and they said it's our house, no open carry. Yeah, you have the right to own and bear, but not in my house. You don't.
Wow.
Because I say so. So,
with the Amos case, it's what's very strange, and this shows you the stupidity of their rules and regulations. He is currently not allowed to sell beef, I guess sheep and pork, but what can he sell? Rabbits, fish, and water buffalo. Because there's no USDA facilities to inspect water buffalo, he can butcher a giant water buffalo. Who breeds water buffalo? Tell me about this. But you can literally tell me the difference, Mark.
I can tell you why.
Between the safety of beef and the safety of water buffalo. Water buffalo. Tell me about the water buffalo. I knew people did buffalo, but I didn't know they did water buffalo. I thought that's a new one.
From the USDA, it was called a custom exempt inspection, and they would come and they'd say, okay, you can do this. You pay us, $140 a year, and then you can do this. You can butcher animals for people, but you have to stamp on it, not for sale. So I unwittingly entered into an agreement with the USDA that I would not sell the product. So a person could bring a buffalo to you. You could butcher it for them and hand it back to them, and you are merely providing them a service. But now, where I have no agreement with the USDA, I can butcher a chicken and sell it to anybody I want. My chicken, I butcher it and I sell it to anybody I want. And a chicken, a chipmunk, a dog, whatever we contract for, I can do that. And the USDA can say, hey, you bet. Oh, we don't have a contract with them. That's all right.
Okay.
You do what you want. But
Wow.
see, Amos entered into a contract with them, which he shouldn't have. He really shouldn't have. If he had, and see, that was kind of the rub when you lay yourself bare to a group of lawyers. They are more likely to compromise with your adversaries than lay down the law and defend you,
Mm-hmm.
because they have license too from
Mm.
the state, right?
Yeah.
So they can't really go head hunting for you because they could lose their license.
Right.
It's the whole thing. When you start to understand it, it's almost like it's comedic in a way, because Americans are very righteous people. I've been all over the world, right? We are very righteous people. We want to do the right thing. I live to get up and work during the day and be kind to people and help people. I live for that. I love
Yeah.
that. I was programmed that way, and I'm really
Yeah.
glad I was. But there are people that are not programmed that way. They're parasitic. They want to steal and lie and cheat and all that stuff.
Right.
But Americans, for the most part, are not like that.
Right.
And when we have these entities come at us, like the Department of Ag, we kind of, oh, okay, that's what I got to do. Okay. But they get you into kind of a headlock to where you can't excel as a small farmer. And I believe it's by design. If it weren't, why
Oh,
is
it's
it?
by design.
I want to pose
Yeah.
a thought, and
right.
I've been wondering about this for a while, whether it's the homeowners association or the Department of Ag or the USDA or the FDA or all of these government agencies that I believe are corrupt and in a direct violation to our government and our Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I believe that these agencies should be null and void. They should be torn down. I believe that they are fraudulent. That's the best word. So you're saying, and we all buy into this, and this is my Mark Baker extremism. So tell me what you think of this, because you have some pretty extreme ideas that make people's heads go on tilt. If I were to get married and sign a contract that says between me and that man that he can beat me to a bloody pulp, at some point during that marriage, if I decide that that was a really stupid decision, the law of the land that says a man cannot beat his wife trumps this contract that I would have signed with this man, because we all know that basic human life says you can't do that. So I would stretch that over.
Especially if you're coerced into doing it.
Exactly. So I would stretch that over to the Amos case, and even I would try to stretch it to the HOA. I believe that the law of God and nature tells us that it is innate within us, just like we don't beat people.
Especially
you should be able to grow your own
when
food.
there is a corner on the market.
On housing.
There's a corner on the market, a monopoly with these homeowners associations.
Yeah.
At some point, your God-given rights have to say, well, I can't get a house anywhere else.
If everybody left, if everybody tried to move out, everybody all at once tried to move out of homeowners associations, there would not be enough houses for people to move into. So I'm just saying, I'm just thinking this through as you're talking.
The way the system is set up. So
right?
I have a friend of mine who wanted to build a house. It was so economically impossible right now between septic and power lines and water lines that they force you into these new subdivisions. And it's almost like you don't even have a choice. If you want to own a home, you have to be part of some sort of neighborhood plotted subdivision. And this goes to the the system, the whole system we need to change
Exactly.
it.
So that's what I'm just saying. I think that at some point we have to be able to still stand on whether it's Amos having, I believe, was coerced into this contract, badly advised, and
yeah,
also it goes against God's. Goes against the Constitution, regardless of whether he signed that contract or not. There are certain things that I believe trump even a contract between two people. What do you think of that?
Well, let's say, here, I'll give you an example. When I was an inspected facility here, when I had a contract with the Michigan Department of Agriculture, I was a inspected facility, right? So I had a license that they printed out. It was about this big, and it said on it, ironically, it said display proudly, right? So I'd pay. It was ironic, really. Everything's a joke. It's all comedic, and they just print it out. You give them $240, and they print it out, and you're supposed to put it in a frame and display it and people do. They'll actually on their business card, MDA inspected, which you're not really inspected. You send them a check and they send you this piece of paper. It's extortion is what it is. But when I decided I would not do that anymore, or no, wait, let me back up. When I was inspected, I had the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which says that I am safe on my property from unreasonable searches and seizures, right?
Sure.
Or unlawful searches and seizures. But because I had signed up for this license and I had agreed to no notice searches, I had agreed to it. So although I have the Fourth Amendment, they're able to say, yeah, but you agreed to it right here. And they had me kind of hoodwinked because I thought, well, if I don't have this license, then I can't do business and my children are going to starve. They lie to you, right?
Exactly.
So
right.
I know what you're saying about God's law, but if you agree to it, it's on you.
Okay, but let's go back. This is another example. This is where I'm going with this. Like, let's say Nazi Germany. Okay.
Yeah.
The Nazis, we know that that's corrupt. Everybody pretty much can point to that and say that was wrong. That government that was set up with Hitler and all of his minions and the Nazis, right? If you entered into a contract with them, I don't believe you're held to that contract just on basic principles of life and human life, right?
Yep.
Just before
well,
God,
they'll hold
morally,
you to it.
What?
The Nazis will hold you to it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Can the law hold you to it? The law of the land? Yes. Could they put you in jail? Yes. But can you go back to appeal to a higher power because you're right? So that's what I'm getting at. I'm not saying.
Good.
Do you get what I'm saying? There's a middle ground here. It's kind of mushy. I'm not saying that they won't throw you in jail. You look at the people, and I can't talk about this because we're on these stupid platforms, but the people that are being held in prison in DC right now, right? Most of them did not do anything wrong. Yeah. They are being falsely held there. So I'm just saying, yes, can they do it physically to you? Yes, but is it law? God's law? Is it law according to our nation? Well, would God and the founding fathers hold you to that? You know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm getting at here?
I do.
So you have that's where you have to make the decision. Am I going to try to take God and the founding fathers and all this to this battle? Or am I just going to bow out on this one because I did sign the contract? I think it could go either way depending on the person.
Okay, I hear you. And I would say there's one more facet to this. There's one more facet that I got to turn you on to. A long time ago, after we won our court case, I was introduced to a man. He was an older man, and I knew a little bit about him, but not much. His name's Jerry Boykin. I'm sure you've heard that name before.
Yep.
He was the commanding officer in the incident that happened in Mogadishu. They lost a lot of equipment, a lot of guys. It was really bad. Black Hawk Down is the movie that
Right.
they made out of it. And I understand it was worse than that. But I was in a briefing with him, and he knew about the problems that we'd had. There's a lot to know about that, but there were people at the state level that knew I was about to kill the goose that laid their golden eggs. I have basically strangled that goose. And so they appealed to my superiors, even though I'm retired. I almost said retarded. Even though I'm retired, I still have superiors. I still have superiors. And General Jerry Boykin was briefed on the situation here in Michigan, right? And I was at an event, and I happened to be sitting very close to the podium, like I was the closest guy to the podium. And Jerry went off on the some of the challenges that we're facing as a country. And I mean, he was going right down through it with LGBT, all of, transsexualism, all this stuff. And a man sitting behind me who I wished he didn't do this interrupted the general and said, "Sir, what's the solution to these problems?" In effect, he cut the general off. Jerry thought it was me, I think. And he did one of these, just like that. And he said, "Oath of office." Now, we didn't really know what he meant by that at the time, but he's definitely a three-dimensional thinker. This is the guy that created Delta Force, Army's Delta Force. Very, very difficult people. Very, very bad. Well, I mean, they're good people, but they do difficult things. So what we come to find out, here's the meat of this, okay? You and I are governed by a constitution. We're governed by it. And we think that's like a bunch of do's and don'ts, right? It really isn't. It's all the things that we can do. And it's like a blanket of freedom that we pull over ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And that blanket provides us the right to do what we're doing now. First Amendment, free speech. I can make fun of Obama's ears if I want to, and I won't be shot at dawn. Second Amendment, I have the right to own and bear arms, very important, and so on. The Fourth Amendment, I'm secure in my home and my papers and my effects. Fifth Amendment, my life, liberty, property protected under due process of law, and so on and so on. Well, anyway, come to find out, the oath of office is something that I took when I joined the military.
Right.
Raise your right hand,
Right.
left hand on a Bible, and you swear to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Right? So in the state of Michigan, and it's your state too, all state constitutions require this. Your employees, your public servants, they like to be called public officials nowadays, but they're public servants.
Right.
That means they don't get to tell you what time to go to bed. You tell them what time to go to bed.
Yeah.
They're required to take an oath to the Constitution, right? So stay with me. So let's say you have some township supervisor, let's say. He's required to take an oath. And he says, well, you can't paint your house white because we say so. And me and the county clerk and this one and that one, we all got together and we say, well, you can't paint it white because we say so.
Right.
And they create an ordinance against painting houses white, which they actually do this stuff. It's crazy. Right. But under the Fifth Amendment, your process is when you go to the paint store and you pick white, that's your process. That was your prerogative. You picked white. Nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah.
So when that guy does that, when he says that to you, when he says you can't do it, he'll probably put it in writing and send it to you like a little weasel, and you get it, you very quickly sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and maybe some carbon paper. And first you find out what his net worth is, right? And you say, this is a letter to inform you that I am suing you for your net worth for violation of my Fifth Amendment rights, which is a breach of contract, right? Because when he hires in as the township supervisor, he does one of these,
Yeah.
right? And he takes the same oath. And so he should know better before he goes telling you you can't paint your house white.
Exactly.
And a lot of times they do, but they figure you don't. And so when he gets that letter and he's like, holy smokes, I'm being sued for my net worth. And you want to have a dollar figure in there. That shakes people up. And it's signed by Mark Baker, farmer, Holy smokes. I guess I'll run this up to the county attorney and see what he says, because Mark doesn't know what he's talking about, of course. And the county attorney looks at that and he says, dude, you're being sued personally. You better get you a lawyer, and you better get a good one too, because this guy's got a case issue. And that township supervisor is going to say, maybe he'll get on the phone and says, I don't mind white after all. So why don't you paint your house white? And he'll try to keep that exchange between you and him, because he doesn't want the golden goose to be killed, because every time you pay them or you do what they want, you go up there and you'd fight with them and you'd say, I really want to paint it white. Well, okay, you can get a special use permit. It'll be $150. So not only do you have to pay for the paint, you got to pay the township. And that stuff's going on in the state of Michigan. It's the craziest thing you ever seen. You can have like a washer machine on your front yard, and the lazy boy that you were sitting in 2 years ago in your front yard, and they will come by and they'll say, you've got to move that. But I maintain that the Fifth Amendment says that my life, liberty, and property, that lazy boy's mine.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the property's mine. If I want a lazy boy out there, that's my prerogative, right? And so in this case, you might head to head with them, talk with them about it, but actually a better thing to do is just ignore them, right? And usually they go away, because like townships don't have budgets to sue people. They always want to try to get up there and tell you what to do, but they don't really have money to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
but
that's really good.
oath of office thing, that works against any oath taker. So you will notice zoning coordinators, they're hired by the township supervisor, and they get into this zoning thing. So they say, Aunt B and Floyd the barber and Goober the guy at the gas, they get together and they're the township, gurus, and they say, well, agriculture can be over there and industrial park can be over there because we say so, and we're Aunt B. Well, the Fifth Amendment is clear. It's my property. I do what I want on my property, so long as I'm not breaking the law. And when they do this zoning thing, if you refuse to comply, you get letters. And you just have to stand on your constitutional rights. And even if you get summons to court, you're going to take the Fifth Amendment in there with you, and take a camera too, because if you get some judge that's, I don't care about the Fifth Amendment, oh, that'll be right handy when you go to get reelected there, Junior.
Yeah.
And you may not win. You're going to take some losses. In my battle with the state, I had some serious losses, and we still suffer from things, psychological scars from that whole time.
Sure, absolutely.
But it had to be done.
No, and you have to have people that are willing to blaze the trail. Like we have, like Mark has, people are counting on you to stand up.
Let's talk about the farmers in Holland, who
the Dutch
are
farmers
being faced with the government doing eminent domain, basically saying that we want to shut down 30% of all of your farms. And I saw an interview with one Dutch farmer. He is a second or second generation farmer. He goes, he said, I'm not even, some of these farms are 6 generations.
Well, okay, so let's break down some numbers I'm sure your viewers know this, but just so that everybody's on the same page. The Dutch in Holland, 85% of the land is for farming. That's or agricultural use. That's a really massive amount of land for that.
No.
They are number 2 exporter of food
In the world.
In the world.
And what they want to do is they want them to
and they aren't happy with the fact that these farmers are farming and they're not leaving their life. So they're going to try to force them out of their life because they want the land.
They want the property. And so they're making things up. They're talking about not CO2 this time, but fertilizers. And Holland has not increased their use of fertilizers since 1960, even though the farms, the use of fertilizers has remained the same. They've just gotten better and better and better at it. They use more, I guess they must use more natural forms of fertilizer. But this is where we have to come together globally.
Yeah.
Because even Canada is being threatened now. Their farms are being threatened with the whole green agenda. It's very strange. Their whole green agenda is to get people not to grow their own food, but to get Bill Gates and large corporations
to grow lab meat,
your lab meat and your own food,
and eat everything based on
the whole
corn.
idea of telling people that animals are bad for the environment because cows, have flatulence and belch. This is all so very strange. It's stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Well, it's comedic, I think. It's almost a joke that they put out there and they say, well, let's see if they'll believe this. But I think we're at a place now. I mean, this is commentary from the contacts that I have and what I'm seeing, and just I know human nature. Like they're up, the powers that be that are doing this thing with the nitrogen in Holland. They're up against the farmers on one side that have equipment and they're burly men with tempers that you shouldn't fool around with farmers. I'm here to tell you, people who are administrative types that sit in cubicles, they really should, like my good friend Clint Eastwood said, a man should know his limitations, right? They should know that, but they don't. And they have no idea what is going on in the minds of these people. But I'm in contact with a lot of people. And in the United States, you have a big cadre of people that are watching what these government entities are doing. And as they're watching it, they're opening up their footlocker and taking that tomahawk out, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they're a little tired of it. And we've been tried to be nice and say, hey, come on, let's use a little reason here. But when it breaks loose, I think it could be a very difficult situation.
I think that they're trying to force that, though. I think that just like with the date that we're not allowed to mention that it happened at the beginning of a year before the day 7 and after day 5, they're trying to cause us to uprise, to do something. And honestly, if it came to that, I believe we would give them a pretty good fight. I don't think that they keep, and here's the thing, Mark, they keep fumbling. Everything that they keep trying to do has a lot of teeth and a lot of growl, but it's actually like blowing up in their faces.
It fizzles out.
It does fizzle out. So I don't think it's going to come to anything like that.
Rather than a rocket.
I think that they're essentially just kind of digging their own grave, because the more they do on this, the more people wake up and come on our side.
They're shooting themselves in the foot
with every move.
The normies are now like, all of Holland is out there protesting now.
Yeah.
Who thought that the people would protest in Holland with, they're putting manure in the streets. They're putting bales of hay in the streets. They've got, people, this is a populist uprising. And it's like, why do you keep pushing? Because I think it's God, because
it's like a hardening of hearts,
waking people up.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've gone past the whole, 2 years to slow the spread, whatever.
2 years to
And people are waking up, and I think that they're seeing that in a lot of different countries, and it's just going to take a little bit more, probably craziness. And the more that they do, the more they come out with this whole great reset. Even the normies are like, you know what? That just sounds bad.
Right. And people are waking up with the food prices in the grocery stores
and the gas prices.
Mark, recently we had to buy 3 sheets of plywood. They were $50 a pop. We bought 3 hog panels. They were $50 a pop.
$50 I'm like, for a hog panel, 16-foot hog panel.
Like the inflation is going to, when you hit people in their pocketbooks, that's when the tomahawks are going to start coming out, because and people are really starting to feel it. And when you take food out of kids' mouths, which is essentially what they're doing, and they're hurting the poorest of, what was it? The Fed chair from California,
San Francisco Fed chair, just 2 days ago or yesterday even said, I understand, she was asked, well, how is inflation touching you? Well, she makes $450,000 a year. Okay. She's like, actually, I'm at a place in my life where inflation doesn't really bother me. I don't feel it.
Doesn't affect me.
And she said, I think there's a lot of Americans that it really doesn't. It might be a little bit, uncomfortable, but it doesn't really affect you. You're
like
fine.
Most people are not feeling this. And I'm
You're fine.
The people that budget $300 a month for groceries are feeling it. So I just think that they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're causing all these people to wake up. And when the masses awake, and they've awakened the sleeping giant like they have, look out, because it's not going to take much. Our voices alone will shut these people down. I think that's my opinion anyway. And the power of God.
I would agree with you if it hasn't happened already. See, a long time ago, a couple years ago, there was an intelligence interface that came out that really made a big splash. And some people say it's true, some people say it's false. It don't matter, because this intelligence interface said a time is coming when these people will not be able to walk the streets. So they weren't talking about me. They weren't talking about you. Who were they talking about? They were talking about the thieves, the liars, and the beggars that inhabit our government, right?
Wow, that's powerful.
And so they heard it even more. They heard that message so much so that Rachel Madcow and the rest of them had to discredit Q. They had to discredit Q. Now, they don't discredit Sasquatch. If it's not real, why discredit him? So they discredited Q big time.
Monster,
but that message burns in their hearts every night when they go to sleep. Something goes bump in the night. It's not going to be the way people think. Like if they don't back down and finally people say, okay, that's it, we've had enough. It's going to be very covert. People will be getting dragged out of their homes at night. That's how that works. Because there's some very abusive people in local governments. Not so much where I live, but I know in other places, extremely abusive.
Yeah. And, it's already happening.
It's very strange. You have the left wanting to defund the police.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then they want only the police to be armed. And then they want the police to arrest you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very strange. It's very, what they do.
It's comedic.
Is they mess with people's heads because they say one thing and then with the same passion and the same fervor, they say something that is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And so most people are tired of it. They get whiplash, and they can't get their footing. It's like an abusive parent, right? So your parent tells you, I told you 100 times to take out the trash. And then you take out the trash. And then they say, I told you not to take out the trash. I told you not to take out the trash. I told you 100 times not to take out the trash. And you're like, you just told me 100 times to take out the trash. And now you're telling me I'm not supposed to take out the trash. And I don't know and then people just, they literally can't compute because
Mhm.
they look at the government as a parent. And so when there's the two different things. And I think the police thing is the best example of that, right? You know,
Yeah.
we want to defund the police are bad, you know, all this stuff. And then at the same time, well, you shouldn't own guns, only the police should have guns. Wait, I thought you said the police were bad.
Yeah.
Why should they have guns? Well, we need the police to arrest these people. Well, what do you mean? I thought cops were bad. Well, no, it's just, it's so strange. So strange.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it
you
is.
gotta keep your head on straight, guys.
Yeah, the best, you know, with everything that's happening, like with what you just said, we're getting mixed messages from government officials, and I quit listening to them years ago. Years ago, it's like they're irrelevant to me. What I do, it's just totally irrelevant to me. So why should I even listen to their fool mouths? You know, I mean, this show that's being going on in Washington, if it is Washington, I'm not convinced. It's like a bad movie,
Yeah.
and I I'm the one of these people that has a tendency to come down on the side of optimism. I know we're at war right now. I know what side I come down on. I'm not really asked to do anything. It's just sort of an information war. So I put out the information and I tell the truth.
Yeah.
Um, I tend to believe that the good guys, and I served this country with some really good guys that didn't just get out and drop what they were doing. A lot of them went to work in Washington. You know, I was the odd duck. I was the one that, no, I didn't want, I'd had enough. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore. I just had enough. And I came to the farm. I put down the sword and picked up the plow. And that was my option. That was my right. And I'm really glad that I could do that. A lot of
Very
guys.
George Washington of you.
It was. It really was. It really was. Hey, I never planned on staying in the military for 20 years. I really didn't. I wanted to stay in for 4 years and just, it was actually a vehicle to get experience on an airplane that I was working on. And I wanted to go with that airplane as a civilian and be a technical representative with it. That seemed like the thing to do. But then things changed. You know, the Gulf War happened. I had a lot of young guys working for me, and it was like, I can't really leave them at this time. And then,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I got over 12 years, and it's like, well, and then some other conflicts came up, and it was like, they're not going to let you out anyway. You might as well re-up. So I did. And, you know, before I knew it, it was 20. And then it was, I want to go do something else.
Yeah.
I want to go do something else. So I did. So let me get to your questions here, because we're burning daylight here. It's a good thing you guys aren't at the kitchen table, because it'd be a late night.
Ah!
Okay, what's going on with the manufactured food crisis and why it's important we become more self-sufficient? What's your take on that?
Okay, so my take on that is they're trying to funnel us to be controlled. And so when they're burning up all of these food processing plants and all of this, I mean, they're going and culling all these birds because they're saying they have the bird flu and all of this insanity that's happening. We need to understand that they are purposefully doing it in order to make us dependent. You can see that they actually did that with the African American community when they started incentivizing people to have children outside of wedlock, right? Not because they wanted to give money to them, but because they wanted them dependent on them and the system. And so they're trying to funnel everybody into, the 1984, you get your 2 eggs a day and all of that stuff. And so it's vital right now. I believe that we are being given a time by God right now. You still have time to prepare, guys. And I'm not talking about, yes, we've stocked up on dried beans and we try to prep. We got our suture kits and all that kind of stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
Knowledge and experience is more valuable than anything. And I would add to that land. So if you can, at all get yourself, I don't care if it's a quarter of an acre. Having your own plot of land is going to be so important going into this. And then having the knowledge and the know-how, we still have a little bit of time before the collapse that I believe is going to happen, that's going to lead to God's great reset, is that's our belief system, that God's resetting the system, writing it back to the way that he intended for us to live. And we're headed that direction, but it's going to kind of get painful and ugly before that. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what happened with 2020. They shut everything down. They stopped manufacturing things. And then, so now you go to the grocery store. I was at the grocery store a few days ago. One thing that we don't make is sour cream. We do not make our own sour cream. And I love sour cream. I go to buy some sour cream, and the entire section that included all dips had 5 sour creams and 4 French onions. All of the shelves were empty. It wasn't a holiday. Nothing had happened. The food wasn't
Never happened
there.
before,
That has
ever.
never happened to me before. And I'm noticing that you'll see an entire line at, whether it's Rural King, of box fans or paper towels. They're lining the shelves. The stuff is not there. So if you can get it now, get it, because this is manufactured. This is not by accident. This is part of their total agenda. It's like this. They have been coming out blatantly. This is in regular news articles saying, we are going, especially in the UK. Leah was just reading this to me earlier. We want to allow the gasoline prices to stay high because we want to force people to lessen their dependency on fossil fuels. So all of this stuff,
They feel the pain,
and then you'll
on
make a
purpose.
different decision,
Yeah.
right? So you're on a torture rack, and they are cranking it up, and they're saying, now will you change? So I would say, do change to become more
what they want you to do.
Self-sufficient.
That's
right?
gonna blow. That's what they're not wanting you to do.
It's all by design. And so it's so
Right.
important, guys. We still have the time. You still have time to get ready, but it's going to get ugly before it gets better. And you're going to want to have, I would say, at least a 2 to 3 month food supply.
And here's the thing, Mark can talk about this. You guys just had and I'd love to hear about your new plans for your chicken tractor. It looked a little bit different. But if you've got a good acre, man, guys, we grow 50 birds a year, and that's all that we need. Like we don't eat more than that. We grow our own pork and butcher all our own pork. And we did that for several years. And then we really wanted some beef. We don't have enough room for cow. So we went ahead and got half a cow because I really like hamburgers.
But we got it from a local farmer.
Absolutely. We got half a cow.
Yeah.
So between our half a cow and our own pork and our 50 chickens, we have plenty of meat. And I would say, like, the easiest thing that you can do is run some meat birds, and seriously put that up in your freezer. That's gonna really help every single person. It's honestly, running meat birds is, quite frankly, the easiest thing you can do.
I want to say one more thing to this, and this just kind of hit me, and I never say this on the show. I don't think I do. Think outside the box for your situation, because I hear a lot of times, and I get this from our people, guy, I live in an apartment, I can't, my situation is XYZ. If you start asking God to open a door, there could be somebody that you're supposed to combine households with, and between the two of you, you could get some
Our
land.
neighbors across the way,
right?
They raise their chickens out for like 6 weeks, and then they combine them with their friends out in the country,
right?
And their friends run the tractor, and then they both come together and butcher the birds, and they get half, and they get half.
So I'm just saying, we talked earlier about community. Community is so important. Mark has a massive family, and a network and all of that, and that's how he's able to get all of this stuff done, right? Many hands make for light work. So if you're alone, you don't have to get married to join in a contract with somebody. Just start praying about it and see what happens, who God could join you together with, and maybe you could get some land. You're not stuck to apartment living. There are other ways outside of this paradigm that we are told that we have to live in.
Oh, for sure. And that's really what the tribe is about. It's skills sharing. And like, we got like 25 people coming to the farm Saturday for a canning workshop.
That's cool.
awesome.
I've been seeing Jill post about that.
Yeah, 25 people. We had 24 people came to our pastured poultry class this year.
Awesome.
It was really good. And
That's amazing.
the last one we did was grazing, a grazing school. It was put on by one of our friends that actually was intern down there at Polyface.
Nice.
So he learned quite a bit from those people. So there is, I'm encouraged because the people they have a thirst for this, and they're going to quench that thirst. People came from really far away to come to our classes.
Wow, that's
So,
awesome.
if you live in an apartment and, well, I can't grow wheat in my apartment. Yeah, that's
Right.
true. There's a lot of things you can't do in your apartment, but what are the things that you can do? What are
Yeah.
the things you can do? You got a Saturday and a Sunday off, and plus all the nights, that you're not working in the evening when
Right.
you could be,
raise rabbits.
you'd be watching TV, but you could be going to market and bringing home a bushel of beans and getting them all canned.
That's
Then you're good.
right.
You could be.
Yeah,
There's so many things that a person can do
that's
to
a big
increase
one.
their preparedness.
That's a big one.
We actually, somebody left a comment the other day because I don't know if it was that interview that we did where we sent everybody to the tribe. But we said, listen, even if you can't grow your own or raise your own, go to your local farmers market. Just like Mark said, buy a bushel of peaches or whatever and can them up. And the comment was, I never thought of that. I never thought to do that. I always thought that if I'm going to can,
it has to be something that you grew yourself.
It doesn't. It absolutely does not.
These farmers are growing more than they can can up themselves.
Yeah.
And you can get a big old basket of beans sometimes for like $30 and then you're good to go. You got, you know, 20 cans of beans or
we get surplus stuff all the time from different people.
Corn
and we'll can it up. If just because we didn't grow it doesn't mean I'm not going to can it.
Corn is cheap. If you buy it, you can buy big giant bushels of corn. Right now, sweet corn. And a good news for sweet corn is a lot of sweet corn is not, I don't think any sweet corn is GMO. You're going to get, that was one thing. It's field corn that's mostly GMO.
Yeah.
That was something that somebody taught me. If you're doing the sweet corn, it's probably not GMO. There might be some.
I'm going to tell you if the poop hits the fan and we have to live off of our canned goods, we're going to eat a lot of peaches. Because our pears, because our pear tree is the most prolific thing that we don't have to do anything to. And we have canned up so many pears. And I think about that a lot when I go to the pantry. I'm like, if I'm going to be eating pears for a long time. Yeah. But that's fine. At least it's food. Like Leah said today, you were canning up some tomatoes and they kind of had a lot of water in the bottom. You said, well, that's okay. At least I'm canning up water. Right. And you never know in a situation you might need that water, like you got to think outside the box. And honestly, it's very fulfilling. This lifestyle, like George Washington and all the founding fathers, there's the preparedness aspect, which gets a lot of people into it, but it's really just the best way of life.
Yeah. It's like a trail, when you pick up the trail, it's going to take you to Oz, and you'll find out a lot of things along the way, a lot of really, and the people too, most of the homesteading community, I'm saying 99 and 44 100ths, they're really helpful people.
Yeah,
they love
really
to
are.
share with other folks, and I enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to this weekend because I'll get to see a lot of new people that I haven't seen in a while, or new people that I haven't ever seen. You guys should come. You really should.
Oh, we will. We're going to make it
We're going to make it happen.
We're
going to make it happen for sure. I know we've got our calendar, and we'll get to that real quick before we end. But our calendar is pretty full up until after October. So we'll see. We might end up making a late fall, early winter run out there, which would be fine.
That'd be fun. We'd be canning does then. We'd be canning deer meat then. So
nice.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
That's really good.
That's so cool.
Put 2 cloves of garlic in the bottom of the can, and then you just put the meat in there and can it. Whoa, that's good stuff. And you don't have to refrigerate it.
So do you pressure can that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
not really the one that does it, but
I didn't figure.
You and Jill, you're one. God brings together two one.
You said we. I was thinking
that's a lot
the royal
like us.
we.
There's a lot of things.
There is a we because I'm guessing you hunt it the deer.
Yeah, Jill doesn't shoot. She doesn't.
See?
She's never killed anything.
There you go. See,
See?
God designed these things.
Honestly, the only thing I've ever killed is some chickens and turkeys. Actually, I don't think I killed the turkeys. Matt does all of
the killing. Yeah.
Killing.
I don't like to have to do it. I've had to do it a couple times.
Honestly,
but I don't like to have to do it.
and that's where, you know,
we could have a whole episode on men's roles and women's roles and
Honestly,
how God made this perfect
Oh, yeah.
design.
This is where, you know I see a lot of Christians and they're upset because, you know, marriages don't last and, you know, people don't want to get married. If you are a homesteader, okay, you recognize that there are different roles that you just naturally flow into because they're God-given roles.
Mm-hmm.
And
you don't have to make a decision. Who's going to slaughter the pig?
Historical.
And the woman's not going to stand there going, I really want to slaughter that pig. Like most of the time. Sometimes, but most of the time not.
Yeah. It's historical and biological. And, you know, honestly, here's the thing. The feminist movement is so stupid because the idea that, and I heard this at the rodeo, God love them. How many of you believe that women can do anything a man can do? And here come the women. You lie like a dog. Okay. Because I was at the rodeo and the men, when they were doing the calf,
the roping and
the calf
tie
roping,
up their legs.
The men have to rope the calf, jump off the horse, flip the calf all the way over and tie the feet.
And so then the announcer guy goes, when they switch from the men to the women, he goes, now, how many of you believe that a woman can do anything a man can do? And I'm face palming because I know where this is going.
The women get on the horse and God love them. Okay. All they have to do is rope the calf and then the glove comes flying off their hand. And that's it. They physically, honest to God, physically cannot jump off that horse and flip that calf. Just physically can't do it. You know, there might be one or two women that can do it. Okay. But I saw those men. Here's the thing. When those men were coming back from flipping that calf, they're walking a little bit funny.
But I'll tell you another thing that's fascinating about our observation at the rodeo about that. There were young men that couldn't have been older than 16 that were able to do it. And then you've got a woman that's maybe like Leah and I, who she couldn't get off and do what that 16-year-old male can do. We are literally not designed to do the same things. Yeah. So I don't want to hear a woman can do anything a man can do because that's just straight up not true.
It's just not.
It's not.
It's just physically not true.
That's foolish.
We can do some things like men.
I absolutely love men, real men, because there are so many things. Marriage, this is the definition of marriage I've been going over in my head trying to talk to people because people want to change the definition of marriage. Okay, fine, do your thing, but you can't change only in the past 50 years can you change the definition of marriage. Okay? Because historically, women cannot hunt because you had to do it with bow and arrows and you don't have the physical strength to take down a buffalo. You don't have it. Okay? Women cannot fight in battle. We're Scandinavian. We come from good Viking stock.
There's that shoulder pads, man.
I recognize that some women fought in battle. I recognize that. The majority of women are not going to be able to fight men. A 16-year-old dude could take us down. Okay, a little boy. Okay. Women needed somebody to build a house. I physically can't get beams up. Okay. There are things that I physically can't do. All right. So when you say Jill hasn't killed anything, that's because Jill's mindset, Jill can like a fiend. I bet she can sew. She does the herbs. She has so many awesome talents. And so when you say we can, you absolutely are doing it. You're a team. It's a marriage. And this is what I want people to understand, that you can't really have a man and a man in a marriage or a woman and a woman in a marriage, because what happens is a woman brings awesome things to the table. And a man bring awesome things.
And what do you see with these relationships is that they always take on a gender role in those relationships.
Like, have you ever seen those survival shows where they put them like on a homestead back in the day or whatever? Even the hardcore feminists who want to be out there working or maybe sawing the wood by hand, I watched one girl, she's like, I really wanted to be out there, but honestly, she ended up back in the kitchen
making cheese
because or cooking, because physically you're not, we can't stall there for an hours and hours and hours at a time. And so you recognize, oh my gosh, a man needs a woman and a woman needs a man, and come together, and that's a marriage because they balance things out. And there's nothing greater than a homestead.
I knew that's where you were going with that.
To show that marriage is necessary and needed. Okay. There are things that women can do. I enjoy like making soap. Okay. Sewing things, crocheting things, sitting there doing things that that I can do. And honestly, I enjoy getting dirty. I enjoy working hard. Men, find yourself a woman that that wants to come inside after being dirty, and it feels good. I don't feel good unless I've gotten dirty. Okay. I like to get out there and work hard, but I can only work hard to a certain point. Men are awesome. Okay. And so this whole, put them on a homestead, and people will, honestly, if the world goes to kaput and you put people on homesteads, marriages will just be like, boom, boom, because there'll be a partnership the way they were designed by God to be.
Exactly.
There's a need. Yep. All right. Let me get to this last question because we are burning daylight here. Okay, can you please tell us about the upcoming event that you're having in Plymouth, Mass?
Okay. What Leah just said rolls right into this event, and I'll tell you how. So, guys, I was so excited to be able to come on here because I wanted to invite tribe members who are able to come with us. We're going to be doing an event in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and there is
September 9th, 10th, 11th.
And there is a link on our website on the page for this event. You can go to our website, resistancechicks.com, click on the banner in the upper right corner, The Covenant, Restoring the Ancient Past. Look at that page. You will see a trailer for a documentary called Monumental. I have put the link to a private screener of that documentary underneath there. You guys can watch it, and I would encourage all of you to watch it.
In the town of Plymouth, Massachusetts, there is a little known secret. It's a monument to our forefathers.
It's huge. It's 81 feet tall, solid granite.
To the pilgrims that came over here. They embodied everything that we just talked about: farming, agricultural, morality, law, liberty. Yeah. And in the 1800s, they created a monument to them, and it's the best kept secret in the nation. If everybody knew that this was this hallowed ground, to kind of figure out how was America formed. If you go and you see this monument, you're going to figure out how America was birthed so that we can take our country back again.
Yeah.
And it was put together by the Pilgrim Society, designed by the man who did the illustrations for Uncle Tom's Cabin, Hammett Billing. And you've got these reliefs. And number one in the middle is faith, and she's pointing to heaven. She has a Bible in her hand. Then you have morality with a prophet and an evangelist. You have law with justice and mercy.
So essentially, as Leah's describing what she's doing, she's describing the monument, but the monument is only a symbol to the actual. I wanted to tell the story before you get to the description.
Yeah.
So this is how this directly ties, because the pilgrims came here, and I started out our promo, which Scott Kesterson of Bards FM did the voiceover for us for that. And it says, before 1776, there was 1620. The pilgrims came over here with a 500-year plan. They wanted to spread the gospel. They wanted to be on this new land. And a lot of them died. And their stories are so heroic. And when you hear them, you will be moved to tears. The Mayflower Compact that they signed, this was before our Constitution, before the Bill of Rights. It was the first form of self-government that really had ever been done. There's a story where, since most of them had died that first winter, they
51
froze.
Out of 120 survived.
Afterwards, what happened? You had a lot of families that were disjointed. You had women that had died. You had men that died. They had children. Instantly, I don't know the exact time frame, but almost instantaneously coming out of that winter, they married each other, and they married not out of love, but because they understood that for families to exist, you needed a man and you needed a woman to join together. And that's how I said it really comes together as what we were just talking about to this event. When you hear the stories of these homesteaders, right? These pilgrim homesteaders that came across the Great Pond, as we like to call it,
with no Home Depot, no Lowe's.
They had to split. So the way that they built their houses is they would fell these trees, and then they would use a splitting method to split their wood, right? They didn't have a sawmill. Okay. They were split. The ingenuity that they had. And so when the Pilgrim Society knew that in 1620, our founding fathers came here with something or our forefathers, that's the forefathers are the Pilgrims, the founding fathers are 1776, that our forefathers came here with something very powerful. What was it? How do we preserve it? And they preserved it in this monument that when you go to it, we've been there twice after watching that documentary that I've told you guys, there's a private link to watch, the private screener.
Okay.
Our lives were indelibly changed. Walking these grounds, they're hallowed grounds. You can't go there without feeling it. You can't go to the town of Plymouth. So God laid it on our heart to take people back to experience what we experienced, because there's a quote that most people know, but they don't know where it came from. As one small candle may light 1,000, so this light here kindled hath shone unto many, yea, in some sort to the whole nation. Let the glorious name of Jehovah have all the praise. That's from William Bradford. He was the governor of this little town of Plymouth
Elected
for 40 years. And what they did there was the actual foundation of America, of the United States. And so we want to take people back, and you're going to leave equipped to stand up to these tyrannical false government officials, to all of this stuff. And so, Leah, go ahead and finish the description of the monument.
And they have education. So on the one side of education, it's a mother, and you've got youth and wisdom, which is the elders. And then you've got liberty, which has a dead lion skin over his back, and it's tyranny overthrown. And when you go there, you feel, and you kind of look at the Pilgrims, knowing that they were sent here so that we would be here.
Yeah.
So that we would have America. Like, God totally sent them here. And even though some of them gave their lives, they knew that they were going to live on. They didn't think that when they died, they died.
Yeah.
Right. They knew they were going to live on through their children. I think there's like I don't know how many million of people are descendants of the Mayflower.
A lot of people,
right?
Yeah.
But it was more than that, because we throughout history embody these principles. We need to have education that is home-based. We need to have liberty, right? With and overthrow tyranny. And we need to have law with justice and mercy. So you have tyranny overthrown and peace. And we need to have morality. We need to have faith. And without that, you don't have America. You don't have any good civil body. You can have as much democracy as you want, but you'll never have what our founding fathers were able to create.
Yeah.
And so our goal is, it's an immersive event.
It's not a sit down conference. We will have some speakers in the evening, right? But we're going to be doing boots on the ground, walking the town of Plymouth, taking tours. You're going to walk away with so much information. Your mind's going to blow.
There's a recreation of the Plymouth Village, and you're going to go to that. That's in the ticket price. We've made it so that like everything's just kind of like ticket price. Nobody does this except for maybe some touring guides, whatever.
Nobody in the Patriot movement, nobody in the Homestead movement.
You're going to get on the replica of the Mayflower. It's called the Mayflower 2, and you'll see how small that boat was for 120 people. You're going to take a 90-minute walking tour by a professional Christian Patriot tour guide who lives there in Plymouth, Leo and Nancy. You're going to walk around Plymouth. You're going to go to Burial Hill, where a lot of these grave markers
William Bradford's buried there.
It's the most alive graveyard I've ever been at. The power of God is there. And even on Sunday, we've got a commissioned Patriot boat where you can take an ice cream tour.
We're going to do a recovenanting with the Native Americans. There's a whole kind of group of people that want to participate in that.
Just last week, we found out that our good buddy Scott Kesterson is going to be there
in person
for the entire time. So we're going to have historians. Scott's going to be there.
Dr. Alan Keyes is going to speak.
It's going to be a life-changing experience, but we're not billing this as a vacation. We're billing this as a pilgrim boot camp, because I do believe that something is going to be happening soon in October or November, so that we can take these principles. And I honestly, guys, this is the same kind of principle. See, Jill and Mark, they live these principles out. I don't even know if they know that they do, but they already live like the Pilgrims. They already embody, they homeschool their kids. The moral people, they believe in the word of God. They believe in God. They believe in community. They believe in justice. They literally could come and speak on these things. I mean, you're more welcome to come and be a speaker if you feel like led to come out. But yeah, so we want you guys to come. We have a promo code just to get people buying their tickets early.
Plymouth.
So we know how many are going to come, so we can get the tour set up. So that's like $10 off. We've made it so that the price is just basically the tours. And we're going to do a dinner on Saturday. God's worked it out.
Really?
We've got a we've got a church that's allowing us to use the church. We're going to do a box lunch on Friday. So we've made it so that it's as inexpensive as possible. I think it's we've got it at $125 for all of that.
That's if you use the promo code.
And that's including $100 worth of tours, guys, and 2 meals. So God has worked this out to make this a very affordable.
And if you can't come, here's the thing. If you can't come, Leah and I are actively getting messages from people who are seeking scholarships. So you can donate to send other people there.
Yeah.
So we've got some homeschool people that want to come, and they're like, I just can't, I can do the lodging, but is there any way you can help me with the ticket? And we are going to try to help those people out. But if you want to help fund people, we have
we're going to stream it.
And we are going to stream it. We're going to at least record it and upload it at the very least. So I want you to stay tuned on resistancechicks.com, because God has been highlighting this monument. I think he's kept it hidden away for a couple of 100 years. And Lee and I we'd have to do a whole episode, which we actually did with Scott Kesterson the other day, to kind of really get you into the feel of it. But the best thing that I can encourage you guys to do, and Mark, I think you guys should do this too as a family, because I know y'all watch movies. We do too. Watch that private screener, the documentary, and you will be touched. Your life will be changed when you watch it, and you'll go, oh my gosh,
those are my people.
These are my people. And that's why we're doing this. So I want to just encourage you guys, resistancechicks.com, click on the banner, get more information, shoot me an email if you have any questions, because I would love to see people from the tribe there, because we're members of the tribe.
What's the date on that?
September 9th, 10th, and 11th. That date is by design. God picked it. I didn't. I had several other dates in mind, and God funneled it to that date. And I think it's
9/11. We will be at the monument on 9/11.
Yeah.
It's going to be very.
So yeah, the link is literally on our website, resistancechicks.com. The banner's in the upper right-hand corner. Just click on it and it'll take you to the page. All the information is there, including that link.
That sounds interesting to me. That's my home state. Massachusetts.
No way!
I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
You're a New Englander?
Yeah, I'm firmly steeped in the Revolution, and I used to walk past the monument every day to elementary school. It said, near this spot, Nathan Howe left his plow in the furrow to respond to the Lexington
I forgot about
alarm.
that.
I remember now.
Yeah,
that's really awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I played in the woods where the Revolution happened. I played there, so I'm quite.
Well, you're more than welcome to come and be a speaker.
I lived near the North Bridge. I lived in Concord, Massachusetts when I was going to A&P school.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to hang out at the North Bridge all the time. It was
the
Concord
I think
Bridge.
he told us that, but putting it in this context I remember now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does.
Hey, I think this is really cool, and what comes to my mind is you didn't plan it this way, but in a lot of ways we've seen things happen that are blows to the other side. Roe v. Wade, that was the end of their blood sacrifice right there for a lot of them.
That's right.
It didn't do everything we wanted, but now it's in our court and we can make the decisions that we want. Right. And that drove their little satanic minions insane, because their blood
it's great.
Came to an end. And then the other thing that happened was the Georgia Guidestones were blown to smithereens.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Huge.
That is huge.
And I don't think that was the bad guys doing that. That was their little monument to what they wanted.
Yeah.
And
I think
there was a storm that happened that night. There was a storm. I think that it could be the very fist of God.
Lorna, go to resistancechicks.com.
I told her. Okay. I said that. Yeah. And there's our boy Haven Diziwu. So we met Haven at the same conference where we met Mark and Jill. We all go way back to that same conference.
Them, and now they're doing it, man.
They are doing it. You were saying, sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying all this stuff's happening.
Well, your expedition to Plymouth is on the offensive now.
Yeah.
Your position has changed. Before, hey, we were playing defense before. We really were. Yeah. But now we're not. That's why the tomahawks are out, because now we're coming for you.
That's right.
You had your chance. You had all this time. And I'm telling you, the people who are trying to, or who are detailed to carry out the tyranny, right? They're detailed to do it. I'm here to tell you they're mercenary. They're doing it for money. And when their safety, their spiritual safety, their physical safety is threatened, you know the type of people they are. They're going to be like,
Yeah.
oh no, not me. I don't.
Right.
Oh, I'm getting sued. Oh no, I don't want to do it. So this thing is starting to turn very quickly.
Right.
And I've been at war before, a couple of times, and I can tell you that misinformation is a weapon. So we're being misinformed that,
Yeah.
you know, death, destruction, sorrow, murder, all this stuff. That's what they're informing us of. And it's misinformation. Actually, a new America is coming, you know, where we will not be on a war footing, we'll be on a peace footing. And there's plenty for everybody, and everybody will want to participate in it. So if we approach life with optimism, I think that, you know, it'll show, and it's
Yeah.
going to have an effect. If we are defeated, you know, like going into Iraq, Abrams tanks are rolling into Baghdad. And Baghdad Bob, he was there, like Tokyo Rose, are saying, the Americans, they are running. They are retreating. Well, that's the same thing that the mainstream media is doing right now. They're saying, oh, gee,
Yeah.
this president, he's the best thing since canned beer. And, oh, don't worry about the recession. That's not really happening. And, you know, another thing they said, too, that I think is really important to everything Satan does, it's sort of an inversion. It's like,
That's right.
Everything is like, it's upside down world. So during the Wu flu, it was, ooh, you don't want to die, do you?
Right.
You better take this. And so we're being told that dying is bad.
Wow.
So I never have really looked at it that way. A tragic death before your time, well, it's not really before your time. It's when you're called, but it's not bad. To die is gain, actually, for us.
Yeah.
So I think that when it comes to a situation where we feel strongly about, and we feel like we're being put in a situation where we need to do the right thing before God and country, we need to do the right thing because we're working for that. Well done, my good and faithful servant. He's just looking at this one thing that you did where you could have punked, but you did the right thing. I think that's happened. I think that's happened a lot. The forces of the minions of Satan, they're worried. I just know, I can feel it. They're worried because
Yeah. That's so good. I'm so
put
glad
up with
that
it a
you
lot.
got it. I feel it. Honestly, it was Roe v. Wade and then the Georgia Guidestones, boom, boom. And we had
man.
just left
It was a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, we had just left a
Oh, yeah.
revival in Texas, and there was a lady there who really speaks on the Georgia Guidestones. So she's like known as the Georgia Guidestone lady. She spoke about the Georgia Guidestones at this event 2 days, 3 days after we all got back. Boom. And we're all texting each other, all the people that were there.
Oh my
We're
gosh.
like, are you kidding me? After Roe v. Wade. And so the fact that you just said this is an offensive move going into the enemy's territory. I mean, that's exactly our goal. When we're going into Plymouth, I'm telling people, be spiritually prayed up because we're going to ignite the light because Plymouth, Massachusetts, all of New England was filled with the fire of God. They were the people. They were our founding fathers, and now it's deader than a doornail, and it's overrun by liberals.
There was a revival that happened for 40 years prior to the revolution called the First Great Awakening, and it was all across New England.
Yeah.
And our founding fathers specifically said that the revolution never would have happened if it weren't for the First Great Awakening that happened in New England to ignite the light of God in these people. And then we had the Second Great Awakening. When was that?
Right before the Civil War.
Before the Civil War. So I think that God's going to take us into a spiritual war. It's not going to be a physical one, but we're entering now for this third great awakening into a spiritual war.
We're going to take some land back, baby.
And we are going to literally take land back.
And I think a lot of people are taking land back all over the nation.
Yeah.
And we're going to light that light that our founding fathers wanted to light the light and spread this beautiful republic around the world.
Yeah.
And they never really got to see that fulfilled. And I think that all eyes are looking to us right now because there's tyranny in Poland or Hungary or wherever. And they're like, hey, America, how do we do it? And we're like, honestly, let's go back to this little monument.
Yeah.
If you guys do this, this is how we do this. And we're going to take, and I'm loving that you brought up the fact that we are on the offense now, because that shows me that God is speaking the same thing to everybody, all the patriots. We feel like we have a moment now.
Yeah. The momentum
to go and take the ground.
Now is the time. It's kind of like when you're getting out of mud, and everybody that's ever tried to do this before, once you get that little bit, you do not let your foot off the gas, not for 1 second. You just keep pushing and going. Pedal to the metal.
Go.
No, this time we're not going to let up. This time we're not going to.
That's right.
We know too much. We know way too much about what they've done, and we're coming into a new era right now. Nothing can stop what is coming.
That's
Nothing.
right.
And we'll see.
You be on the right
it's the test of time. But look at what we've seen happen so far.
Yeah.
And we're still led to believe by the mainstream media. I had a man here the other day who was telling me how screwed we are as a country. And I said, wait a minute. We still have freedom of speech, don't we? Oh, well, not on Facebook, you don't. Facebook is like a homeowners association. You agreed.
Right. Yeah.
You agreed to certain stuff. You agreed to let them censor you. So shut up. You're still armed, aren't you? Have they taken any guns from any Americans? No. And let's just talk logistics about that. How are you going to do that?
Right.
The logistics of this so-called oppression, they don't have the bodies to do it. Like when you are in a foreign country as the U.S. military, you have winnowed out a lot of guys that are really good at that stuff. And then they're able to do that. But even they have limitations. We don't have a body of people like that in this country that can disarm Americans. We just don't.
Right.
People say, well, what about the UN? If you've ever served at a base where UN troops come in, you see just how effective they are at stealing and everything else. They're not really good soldiers, I'm here to tell you. So,
well, you're
anyway,
heard it here, folks. No, that's good to know.
You're in good shape. You're in good company. You're in good shape. Things are going to work out. We will be rebuilding the new America. We're actually rebuilding it right now.
Amen. I feel that.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that. We have a good friend of ours. Actually, you met her at the Rogue Food Conference with us. She's got a farm and she's noticing that prices are going up. And she was texting Leah and I yesterday, and she's like, it feels like it's still getting worse, that they're still winning. And I was like, you don't understand. We have to hit rock bottom. People still have to wake up. God is allowing this to happen. And so it's like, if you understand that you have to hit rock bottom in order to go back up, then the fall actually is taking you back up. And that's that's what's happening right now. We are seeing that, and as a matter of fact, I would say it's more like a system, like a pulley system, because as some people are falling, we are rising. And you're seeing the Roe versus Wade, and you're seeing the Georgia Guidestones, and there are areas where you see the big wins. And I think you're just going to start to see more and more. So Mark, Leah and I respect and love you guys, you and Jill, even though we've never met any of your kids. I know that your son's been working hard, just up in the game of the Anyone Can Farm experience, which is huge. And I love all the video footage, everything that you guys are doing. It's just like you said earlier before we went live, you said it's all just kind of falling into place. And I see what God is doing in your lives. And I just rejoice over the Anyone Can Farm tribe, the Anyone Can Farm experience.
Yeah, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for what you're doing. I love to be able to send people to you guys. It's so needed. And people are waiting on that school. They're wanting that school that you were talking about, talking to me about. Everybody wants that.
I know. That one's kind of like, I'm stepping forward and say, okay, I'll do it. It. But I'm waiting on orders.
I get it. I get you. But you guys are doing an amazing
work.
Jill go ahead.
Jill just gave my secretary just gave me this. You're going on 2 hours. So
I know.
we probably ought to pack it in. Let's see. Was there anything else that I needed to brief the
I think
public
that's it.
on? Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay. Vaya con
Anything
Dios,
else?
my darlings.
No, thank you for this. Has been awesome.
Yeah, it really has. I really appreciate you guys. Keep fighting the good fight. Never give up.
You too.
And keep your powder dry. Until we meet again.
All right. Bye,
Okay,
guys.
I'll
Bye,
see ya.
Joe.
Bye, guys.
Good
God
night.
bless.
All right. Au revoir.